The city was quiet in the way it only ever became after midnight, when the noise retreated inward and even the streetlights seemed tired of standing guard. A thin rain clung to the pavement, softening reflections, blurring edges, making everything feel slightly unreal, like the world itself was holding its breath. Elliot stood by the window of his apartment, fingers resting against the cold glass, watching the rain trace slow, uneven paths downward. Inside, the room was dim, lit only by a single lamp near the couch. The space felt too large for one person, though it had once been shared. Now it echoed with absence more than memory. His phone buzzed quietly on the table behind him. He didn't turn immediately. He already knew who it would be. Mara. She never texted late without a reason, and yet her messages were never urgent. They arrived gently, like knocks made by someone who wasn't sure they were allowed inside. When he finally looked, the screen glowed softly. "I'm nearby. I don't really want to be alone tonight." That was all. No explanations. No pressure. Elliot closed his eyes briefly, the weight of that sentence settling somewhere deep in his chest. He thought of the woman he was supposed to go home to, her back turned in bed earlier that evening, her words polite, distant, careful in the way people become when love has thinned but obligation remains. He typed back slowly. "Come up." Mara arrived 15 minutes later, rain damp and quiet, her coat clutched around her like a shield. When Elliot opened the door, their eyes met for just a second longer than necessary, long enough for something unspoken to pass between them. She smiled softly. Hi, he replied, stepping aside to let her in. She smelled faintly of rain and jasmine, a scent Elliot had come to associate with late conversations and unfinished thoughts. She moved through the room with familiarity, slipping off her coat, resting her bag on the chair as though this place was an extension of herself. In some ways, it was. They didn't sit right away. Silence gathered between them, not uncomfortable, but heavy, like the air before a storm. Mara glanced around, her fingers absent-mindedly twisting the thin silver ring she wore on her right hand. The secret circle. Elliot noticed it every time, though he never commented on it directly. He only knew that she touched it most when she was nervous, or when she was trying not to say something. "You okay?" he asked gently. She nodded, then shook her head, a quiet contradiction. "I don't know. Today felt long." He understood that language too well. It was the language of people who carried too much inside and didn't know where to set it down. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, a polite distance between them that felt both intentional and fragile. The lamp cast warm shadows across the room, softening the sharpness of reality. Mara tucked her feet beneath her, shoulders slightly hunched. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" she asked suddenly, her voice barely above a whisper. Elliot didn't answer right away. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling, searching for honesty that wouldn't destroy something he wasn't ready to name. "Yes," he said finally. "More often than I admit." She exhaled, a small sound, relieved. Her fingers tightened around the ring, then stilled. That ring had once been a promise, to herself. Elliot knew the story. She'd told him years ago, on a night much like this, that she wore it to remind herself not to lose herself in someone who couldn't fully choose her. He wondered, not for the first time, if she thought of that promise now. Their conversation drifted slowly, like a tide that refused to rush, memories from years past, shared jokes softened by nostalgia, moments that hovered between laughter and longing. Every so often, their knees brushed, accidental but electric, each contact sending a quiet awareness through them both. Elliot felt it tightening inside him, the growing recognition that this wasn't harmless anymore. That it hadn't been for a long time. Mara leaned forward to pick up her glass, her sleeve sliding back just enough for the ring to catch the light. Elliot's gaze lingered there, his chest tightening. "You're staring," she said softly, not accusing, curious. "Sorry," he murmured. "I was just thinking." "About?" she asked, though something in her tone suggested she already knew. He hesitated. The room seemed to lean in, the silence thickening, pressing closer. This was one of those moments, those dangerous pauses where everything could change if someone spoke too honestly. "About how easy this is," he said instead. "With you." Her breath caught, barely perceptible. Her fingers stilled on the ring. "That's what scares me," she admitted quietly. Their eyes met again, this time without retreat. The space between them felt charged, fragile, alive with things neither was ready to touch. Outside, the rain began to fall harder, tapping insistently against the window, as if urging them forward. Elliot swallowed, his voice low. "Mara." She didn't look away. "Don't," she whispered, though she didn't say his name back. The secret circle glinted between them, a silent witness. And in that moment, balanced on the edge of restraint and truth, Elliot felt it clearly for the first time. He was losing control, not because he wanted her, but because he already had. The rain continued through the night, steady and unrelenting, as though it had decided not to leave until something inside the room finally broke open. The window fogged slightly from the warmth indoors, blurring the city into soft shapes and muted light. Time slowed in that quiet way it sometimes does when emotions begin to outweigh minutes. Mara shifted first, not away, but closer. It was subtle, almost unintentional. A few inches at most. Yet the movement changed everything. Elliot felt it immediately, a quiet awareness spreading through him, tightening his chest, steadying his breath in a way that felt dangerous. He didn't move. That was the rule they had always followed, never be the one who reached first. Mara rested her elbows on her knees, hands loosely clasped, the silver ring pressing into her skin. Her gaze dropped to the floor, as if she were bracing herself against something invisible. You ever notice, she said softly, how silence can feel louder than words? Elliot let out a slow breath. All the time. She nodded, still not looking at him. I think that's when truth gets restless. The air between them felt thinner now, stretched, as though it might tear if either of them leaned too far. Elliot watched her profile, the gentle slope of her nose, the faint tension in her jaw. He'd memorized her face over the years without meaning to, learned the difference between her thoughtful silence and her guarded one. This was the guarded kind. You don't have to say anything, he offered, though the words sounded hollow even to himself. Mara smiled faintly. I know. That's part of the problem. She finally looked at him then, and the intensity of it made his pulse quicken. Her eyes were reflective, vulnerable, carrying the weight of things she had swallowed down for too long. I wear this ring, she said quietly, lifting her hand slightly, because once, a long time ago, I almost disappeared inside someone who never truly chose me. Elliot's throat tightened. He'd heard the story before, but never like this. Never with her voice trembling just enough to reveal how close it still lived beneath her skin. I promised myself, she continued, that I'd never again be someone's secret. Or their escape. The word escape lingered in the room, heavy and accusatory. Elliot felt it land where it hurt most. I don't think of you like that, he said carefully. I know, she replied, too quickly. Then softer, that's what makes it worse. Their knees touched again, this time not accidental. Neither moved away. The contact was warm, grounding, terrifying in its simplicity. Elliot stared at the point where their legs met, as if looking anywhere else might undo him. His hands were clasped tightly together, knuckles pale. I never meant for it to feel like this, he admitted, his voice low. It just happened. Mara exhaled slowly. That's how it always happens. Silence settled again, deeper now. The lamp flickered faintly, shadows shifting across the walls like memories replaying themselves. Elliot became acutely aware of every small sound, the rain, the hum of electricity, the soft rhythm of her breathing. She leaned back against the couch, eyes closing briefly, as if steadying herself. When she opened them again, something had changed. Not resolve, but honesty. Do you ever feel lonely? She asked, even when you're not alone. He answered without hesitation. Every night. Her lips parted slightly, the confession landing between them like something fragile and irreplaceable. She studied his face, searching for something, truth, permission, reassurance. Instead, she found recognition. You don't talk about her much anymore, she said gently. Elliot stiffened. That's not fair. I'm not accusing, she said quickly. I just notice. He looked away, shame flickering through him. There's nothing to say. We coexist. We function. But it's like living in a house where all the doors are closed. Mara's fingers tightened around the ring. And with me? The question hung there, bare and exposed. With you, he said slowly, I feel seen. Her breath caught. Her hand fell from the ring to the couch between them, palm open, resting there as if offering something without demanding it. Elliot stared at that hand, every instinct screaming at him to stay still. To remain on his side of the invisible line they'd drawn years ago. But his chest ached. He shifted, just slightly, his arm brushing hers. The contact sent a quiet shock through both of them. Mara's fingers curled instinctively, grazing his sleeve. Neither pulled away. I don't want to be the reason you break something, she whispered. You're not, he said, though the words felt fragile. What's broken was already cracking. She looked at him then, really looked at him. And in her eyes, Elliot saw the same fear that lived in him. The fear of wanting something that came with consequences neither could fully imagine yet. Her voice softened. Then why does it feel like we're standing at the edge of something we can't come back from? Because they were. Elliot leaned back, closing his eyes for a brief second, as though the darkness might help him find restraint. When he opened them again, he found Mara closer than before, her shoulder now resting lightly against his arm. The intimacy of it was unbearable. Outside, thunder rolled faintly in the distance, a low warning. Mara whispered, almost to herself, I don't know how to keep pretending this is just friendship. Elliot's heart pounded. He turned his head slightly, their faces now close enough for him to feel her breath. The world narrowed to that space, the inches between them, the unsaid words pressing harder with every second. He swallowed. Mara. She didn't tell him not to this time. Instead, she closed her eyes. The secret circle slipped from her finger unconsciously as her hand relaxed, the ring landing softly on the couch between them, an unintentional surrender, a symbol laid bare. Elliot stared at it, the weight of what it represented pressing down on him. And for the first time, he wasn't sure he could hold back much longer. The ring lay between them like a held breath. Neither of them reached for it. Time stretched, thin and trembling, as if the room itself understood that whatever came next would not be undone. The rain outside softened again, its urgency fading, leaving behind a muted hush that pressed close to their skin. Mara opened her eyes first. Her gaze fell to the couch, to the small silver circle resting there, exposed and out of place. Slowly, she lifted her hand, then stopped halfway, as though touching it again might seal a fate she wasn't ready to accept. That ring, she said quietly, was supposed to protect me. Elliot's voice came rougher than he intended. From what? From believing in things that only exist in the dark, she replied. From hoping someone would choose me when they already belonged somewhere else. The words settled into him, heavy and undeniable. He shifted, turning fully toward her now. There was no careful distance left, no polite angle to hide behind. Just honesty, raw and waiting. I never wanted to pull you into this, he said. You were the one place that felt clean. Safe. Mara let out a breath that trembled. And now I'm terrified, he admitted. Because I don't know how to sit in the same room with you and pretend I don't feel it anymore. She studied his face, the conflict etched there, the restraint fraying at its edges. She had seen many versions of Elliot over the years, laughing, tired, gentle, distant. But this one, the one standing on the edge of truth, felt different. More dangerous. Say it, she whispered. He hesitated, his jaw tightening. Mara. No, she said softly, holding his gaze. Say it, or let me put the ring back on and walk away before it's too late. Her fingers hovered over the couch, so close to the silver circle now. That was when something in him finally gave way. He reached out, not to touch her, but to stop her hand midair. His fingers wrapped gently around her wrist, the contact light but charged, as though the smallest pressure might shatter them both. She froze. Elliot's breath came uneven. I can't, he said quietly. I can't let you believe this was nothing. Her eyes filled, though she didn't let the tears fall. Then tell me what it was. He swallowed hard, his voice dropping, steady but thick with emotion. It was the first place I felt understood in years. It was the way you listen without trying to fix me. It was every night I wanted to come here instead of going home. Mara's breath hitched. And the worst part, he continued, his thumb loosening slightly around her wrist, is that I tried to fight it. I told myself it was temporary. That it would pass. She whispered, did it? He shook his head once. No. The confession hung between them, irrevocable. Mara slowly pulled her hand free, not in rejection, but in disbelief. She leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling as if it might offer answers. I told myself, she said softly, that if I never asked, I could keep pretending I was just your friend. She turned to him again, eyes shining now. But you're not just lonely, Elliot. You're in love with the idea of being seen. And I'm afraid I'm standing too close to that truth. He nodded, pain flickering across his face. I know. Silence fell again, different this time. Heavier. More honest. Mara reached for the ring at last, picking it up between her fingers. She rolled it gently, watching how it caught the light. This circle, she murmured, was supposed to remind me of my boundaries. She looked at him then, voice barely steady. But it also reminds me that I've never stopped wanting something real. Elliot's chest tightened. He leaned forward slightly, stopping just short of her space. Mara, if I cross this line, everything changes, she finished. Yes. Her lips curved into a sad, knowing smile. Everything already has. They sat there, inches apart, the air alive with restraint. Elliot felt the pull stronger now, not physical alone, but emotional, undeniable. He wanted to tell her he loved her, but the word felt too big, too final, too cruel in its timing. Instead, he said the truth he could no longer hide. I don't know how to go back after tonight. Mara's eyes softened. Neither do I. She stood slowly, breaking the spell just enough to remind them both of reality. She slipped the ring back onto her finger, the motion deliberate, protective. For a moment, Elliot thought she was leaving. Then she leaned down, her forehead resting gently against his, their breaths mingling. No kiss. No crossing of that final line. Just closeness. This is where we stop, she whispered. Because if we don't, I won't recognize myself anymore. His eyes closed. And if we do stop. She pulled back just enough to meet his gaze. Then tomorrow hurts. She stepped away, grabbing her coat, moving toward the door with quiet resolve. Elliot didn't follow. He knew this wasn't over, only paused. At the door, Mara turned back one last time. That ring, she said softly. It didn't fail tonight. Elliot frowned. What do you mean? It reminded me, she replied, that circles don't just trap us. Sometimes they warn us how close we are to the edge. Then she was gone. The door closed with a soft click, leaving Elliot alone with the echo of her presence, and the truth he could no longer outrun. That night had changed everything. And the next choice would destroy or define them both.